have taken both a PPP and an EIDL loan, and what they really want to be specific about is that you're not covering your payroll in the same time frame from both loans, because that in essence would be considered like double dipping. So it's not as though you can't use an EIDL loan after your PPP funds have have been used up to then continue to pay payroll. But that's what it is. The loan amount is for an EIDL is limited, capped at $150,000. And unlike the PPP where you apply through a lender, the EIDL, you apply directly on the SBA website, and there is a portal, and it's a very easy application. It takes 15 minutes to really go through. Loan payments on the EIDL are deferred for a year. Repayment term very generous, up to 30 years. And then the interest rate for, if you're a small business, 3.75. If you're a nonprofit, 2.75. If the loan amount that you are approved for is under 25,000, you don't have to provide collateral, but loans over 25,000 must pledge collateral up to the amount of the loan amount. For those who may have had an existing disaster loan, maybe from Irma or Maria, you can still qualify for this disaster, but you can't consolidate both loans. And this is just, I just put this no penalties for early payoff of the EIDL loan, because we've had that as a frequent question from businesses. So that's the EIDL in a nutshell. Let's just take a look now at the process for forgiveness, and I will preempt this slide by saying that at SBA we're still waiting for the forgiveness portal to be brought online, and we're looking at a date of August. So with all of this, this is assuming that the portal is open in August. So we're a little premature on this, but we just want you to kind of know what the procedure will be like when you have to apply for it. So the first thing that you will do is complete and submit the loan forgiveness application. So for most people, they'll fill out form 3508, and you will find all the forgiveness forms under the same, the PPP loan, the SBA.gov loan portal. Or if you're a sole proprietor with no employees who did not, and I'll go through this again, there are a couple of different qualifications. If you use the SBA, you can use the easy application form. Then once you complete, you submit that form to the lender, and the lender reviews the application and makes a decision regarding loan forgiveness. And this is the same lender that you got the PPP loan from. Then that lender will have 60 days from the receipt of a complete application to issue a decision to SBA. And if the lender determines that the borrower, that you're entitled to forgiveness of all or some of the amount, then, well, this is just, lender protocol. SBA will remit the appropriate forgiveness account to the lender no later than 90 days after the lender issues its decision to SBA. And why this 60 days and 90 days is important for you to understand and to take into consideration is that from the time that the portal becomes operative, you are looking at up to a 5-month process for forgiveness. But it's not something that you have to be anxious about. That is just the process. And remember, the deferment of any loan payment is 10 months. So we have lots of time inside of there, just so that, you don't get anxious. And then if you look at number 6 on the process, if applicable, SBA will deduct EIDL advance amounts from the forgiveness amount remitted to the lender. So if any of you have taken a look so far at the forgiveness application, you will see a little tab saying, did you get an EIDL advance? And this is only for people who have applied for both the EIDL and the PPP. And because the EIDL advance does not need to be repaid, for those who only took the EIDL advance, they don't need to repay that. For those who took an EIDL advance and a PPP loan, the amount of your EIDL advance will be deducted off the top of your PPP loan, and then the difference is what will be eligible for forgiveness. So if we were to just use an example, let's say a borrower got a PPP loan for $50,000, and they also got an EIDL advance for $5,000. Then when they're submitting their forgiveness, they should just keep in mind that the maximum that they will be eligible for forgiveness for will be $45,000. So that's how that works. And then if SBA determines that the borrower was ineligible for the PPP loan, because the loans are going to be subject to review, depending on if there's any red flags, or if it's over a certain amount and that amount is $2 million, then the loan will not be eligible for forgiveness. The lender is responsible for notifying the borrower, A, of your forgiveness amount, and B, on the date, if there's a portion that is reverted to a loan, what is the date on which the borrower's first payment is due, if applicable. And then any remaining balance due on the loan must be repaid by the borrower on or before the maturity date of the loan, and the maturity date for most people will be 5 years after taking the loan. For those who got a PPP loan prior to June 5th, that maturity date was 2 years, but depending on the loan, you can speak to your borrower and have a mutually agree in writing to extend that maturity to 5 years if needed. And then once SBA determines the full amount of the loan is eligible for forgiveness and remits it back to the lender, then that is considered paid in full. So that's just kind of like the chronology of the process as it's going to go between the borrower, the lender, and SBA. And that's something that, just to keep in mind. So let's just briefly go through the two different forms for forgiveness as they stand today. Form 3508 on the SBA.gov, you can find it. It's 5 pages separated into 5 sections. The first 3 pages are what you prepare for your lender. And what do you need when you're preparing this? You need your documentation, you need a calculator, you need patience, and then we'll take it from there. So the forgiveness application calculation is on page 1, the certification is on page 2, and Schedule A is on page 3. And that's the documentation that you are supplying to the lender. And then for your own tax records and for your records as a borrower, pages 4 and 5, the demographics, the worksheet that you did Schedule A on, and the instructions, that's what you keep. Now the easy 3508 easy forgiveness form, let's look at who can fill those forms out. So if you are self-employed or you have no employees, and if you did have employees, if you're self-employed and you did not reduce your own salary by more than 25% and you did not reduce hours, then you can fill out a 3508 easy. If you have employees, but you did not reduce the salaries or wages of any of your employees by more than 25%, and you did not reduce your business hours, then you too can fill out the 3508 easy forgiveness form. But those are the qualifiers for those who can fill out a 3508 easy forgiveness form. It's just a shorter version. Everyone else will just fill out the form 3508. And you can see what, it's a 3-page application, very similar to the 5-page, but shortened. At this point, I am going to turn it back over to Mr. Huttleson, to Wayne Huttleson, so that he can take you through some important links, which if you have a pen or you're taking notes, these are all good links to have. Take it away, Wayne.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just going to wrap us up. These programs have changed a lot, and they will continue to change as every time Congress meets. They are finding new ways to adjust the program to improve its ability to address the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. But as these changes go, it does create a little bit more complication, especially for people who've been trying to keep up from the beginning. So I want to say thank you, Lisa, for doing a great job of presenting it how it is right now. But I want to tell everybody, you don't have to know every detail of the program and read every government regulation that comes out. We do these webinars to give you the basic information to answer your questions, but there's always information out there for you, and we want to make sure you have the appropriate links. So if you're looking at information on the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, if you have questions about that, we have a 800 number that is staffed 12 hours a day. It's my understanding 8 to 8. It was 7 days a week. I think it might be back to 5 days a week. But they are staffed all the time with people who can answer your questions regarding that program, especially if you have an application already in process. That's what they look up, and that's what they have access to information for. There's also our webpage. If you go to sba.gov, and then there's a longer URL, funding programs. One of the easiest way I tell people to do it, if you forget what the URL is, just go to Google, type in SBA space PPP, and the first thing that comes up is going to be the SBA page for Paycheck Protection Program. We have all the rules there. We have the borrower application form that you will submit to your bank. We have information on all the lenders that are providing those loans here in the Virgin Islands. A lot of frequently asked questions. Almost anything you can think of can be answered on that site. The Department of Treasury, which provides the funding for this program, also lists a lot of information on their site. Whenever the new updates are put up, they put it up on Treasury, and we put it up on our site as well. And then we also have our technical resource partners. Lisa and I are here in the territory, and you can shoot us emails and give us a call. We cannot always be as responsive as we would like, but we typically can get back to you. However, I encourage you to make use of the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center and their staff. They are very well trained. We brief them frequently on all the changes, and they can help you one-on-one with assistance on whether it's pulling together information for your business for a proper application, or looking at resources beyond PPP and the EIDL program. They are very well versed in a lot of those resources that are out there to provide you one-on-one help. Usually a little bit more in depth than what we can. There's also information for SCORE down there as well. And then lastly, there is a federal resource, USA.gov/coronavirus, which gives information not only on SBA, but on Department of Transportation, Department of Education, Homeland Security, so many others that can provide you a lot of good information to address the pandemic and how it is affecting not only your business, but your family and your livelihood. So those are good resources to have at your desk next to you. And that's it. From there, I think the next slide just gives us or gives you information on our contact information and contact information for the Small Business Development Center on each island. As I said, you can call. That will often go to voicemail, but we can typically follow back within 24 hours, or you can email both of us. But I highly encourage you, if you're not already a client of the Small Business Development Center, to contact them, schedule an appointment, speak with one of their business advisors, and let them help you specifically with your business. So with that, we'd like to open it up to all of you to answer any questions you may have. And it looks like we do have some questions in the chat that may already be getting answered, but I will open up to all of you. You can either type it out in chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask that question and we'll answer it.
Or if you raise your hand, we can unmute you and you can ask your question.
So this question is for VI SBDC, because they led the July 14th event on new general business license. And Scott is asking if a recording of that is available, Mary Jo.
Yes, that's available on our Facebook page.
Okay. You guys are very quiet today. No questions? Are all local banks offering PPP still? I note only Banco Popular lists it. From our experience, or from what we understand, Banco Popular is listing, is offering it, and is also offering it to non-clients. Merchants Bank is offering it, and they're offering it only to their clients. EIDL, I believe, is still offering it. First Bank is not. Oriental is, and that's an online portal as well. And the Bank of St. Croix, Wayne, I think, are they still accepting PPP
They
loan?
are still accepting, yes.
Okay, so those are the local lenders who are still accepting. And yes.
And there are plenty of banks off island that have been processing applications for people as well. Especially if you have a relationship with a bank stateside, you can reach out to them and ask them if they will entertain an application.
Okay. So Jose, how long does it take for SBA to deposit the EIDL loan in bank once approved? I would say a maximum of 10 business days and probably shorter, but that's general turnaround time. To go back to the question, we talked about local banks, you talked about relationships with stateside banks, and if you don't have a primary relationship, there are also fintech companies that are offering loans to businesses in the Virgin Islands. So you might want to look at, PayPal or Cabbage or a couple of those fintech.
If you discussed it, Lisa, but there's also the Virgin Island Economic Development Authority is accepting loans for people. It's smaller, they have it capped. I think the maximum loan amount under PPP would be $75,000. Of course, it depends on a formula for your business, but if you're a sole proprietorship, you're not going to be receiving a PPP loan of that size or larger anyway. So I encourage you, if you're struggling to get your application with a lender, you can always go to Virgin Island Economic Development Authority.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things we want to encourage is people think, oh, well, it's too much work, or I don't know if I would qualify. If you don't know if you would qualify, call or ask for an appointment with VI SBDC, and they can guide your business so that you're not losing the possibility of this loan, which has forgiveness eligibility. So don't, encourage. There are a lot of sole proprietors who, maybe their finances are not in order, or they don't have all their T's crossed and their I's dotted. This is a good time to start putting that structure in place so that they will be eligible for funding, whether it's this round or in another round, but it's a good one.
And what we'll do, since we're not getting a lot of questions, we won't fill up the recording with a half hour of us talking to one another. So we will let it go till 5:30. And if we continue not having any questions, we'll end a little early, but you always have the information to reach us here on these slides as well.
And if there are no questions, what we can ask is there a brave soul out there who's already taken a PPP loan, who wants to share a little bit about the experience and what's been the experience like for them, or even an EIDL loan?
Hi there, this is Celia.
Hello, Celia.
How are you?
Good, thank you for being our brave soul.
Well, I have the honor of doing some consulting work for the Small Business Development Center, and I just wanted to share some of the experiences that my clients have had that have been really, really good and across the board. Had one client that was turned down by the EIDL because they didn't determine that there was enough economic impact, but she still got the $6,000, the $1,000 per employee. And that really helped her out. Then I had another client that was approved for, say, $150,000, but he didn't want to offer collateral. And we know that, you know, he didn't have to for the first 25,000. So he's taking that first part. And then they told him that he has the option to apply for any more of that that's needed until, you know, through the December deadline. He might have to reapply, but he's still eligible for that. So there's, and I've got 2 others that got it, and it's been really responsive. I've called the helpline several times, and they are very, very, very helpful. And yeah, it's been a pretty easy and rewarding process to help these guys.
Okay.
Good.
And thank you, Sabina. Yeah. And then one of the things that, you know, we hear from our customers is that sometimes they call the helpline for EIDL, and they're like number 1,400 and something in the waiting list. But we have noted that the backlog is kind of down. So even though that's the number, there are also multiple agents helping. So, you know, that wait time might not be as long as the number suggests. And then you also have the disaster customer assistance at sba.gov as an email if you just don't have the time to stay on the phone.
Yes, that's a good point, Lisa. Hope everyone does not let that number discourage you, because there are a lot of people answering the phones. In the very beginning, we had a few hundred people on staff to answer phones, but that quickly ramped up to approximately 8,000. And I've seen our place where they answer those phones, and it is a huge warehouse as far as you can see, and people answering phones. So 1,000 being 1,000 in line may mean you wait 10 minutes, depending on how fast things are going at that time.
So do not be disheartened. All right, last call for questions. If it's 5:30, and we're going to have a last call for questions. If anyone wants to put it on the chat, or if anyone wants to come on and ask a question.
Okay, Lisa, while we're waiting for them to get their question together, I'd like to let people know that tomorrow at 10 a.m., the SBDC will be hosting a webinar. We're talking about the 35 years of assisting entrepreneurs and businesses in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we want people to log on and learn about the history of the SBDC and get an update on how the SBDC continues to serve the territory and what the plans are for the next 35 years. Join our state director, Ted Gutierrez, on this webinar and find out how the SBDC contributes to our local economic ecosystem. So I'll put in the chat the registration link for that, and we'll see folks there tomorrow.
Okay, and just that you know, if you've registered for this one, then you know you can register for we have 2 more open forums on before the deadline of August 8th, and that will be next week Monday, which is July 27th, and then August 3rd, again at 5 p.m. So, you know, if there's anyone that you know who has questions on PPP or EIDL, or who hasn't yet applied, encourage them to join us and get some information and ask questions. The more people in the territory that can reap the benefits of these programs, the better it'll be for our businesses restarting and growing and surviving through this pandemic.
Oh, come on, 21st.
All right. Mary Jo, are you going to type in the chat before you're going to put in the...
Yes, I am.
The link before we...
I'm looking for it right now. Got it. Give me a second. And let me change my chat to everybody.
While Mary Jo is typing that, then, you know, Wayne and I would just like to thank you again for being online with us this afternoon. And, you know, let's just go back to our email addresses. There we go. So that you can please shoot us an email if you have any questions coming out of this session or that you didn't want to ask online. We're happy to help. And again, thank you to SBDC for hosting this meeting for us. And Wayne, I'll turn it back over to you for the last words.
Oh, that's it. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone. Again, if you haven't taken advantage of this program, for these two programs, I highly encourage you to do so. We're still uncertain what the immediate future is going to look like. And we will continue to keep you apprised as changes developed, and tune in next week and tell your friends. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey.